I'm so sorry this video has taken so long to come out. I was having a mental health break from Hellenism and learning to be more forgiving to myself and blah 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 self-pity stuff. Anyways, this video will be covering Hubris, Miasma, and Lyma, and what it means for the modern worshipper. I'd also like to admit that in my last video I made an error. Matron is not the female equivalent of patron in Hellenism. Matron means a woman who is married or a widow, which clearly does not apply to most of the goddesses we worship. In a religious context, matron is a term coined by neo-paganism and has no historical basis in our religion. However, if you want to make the distinction between gods and goddesses, that's fine to do. I haven't yet found if there is a term for goddesses, but for now I would suggest just using patron for both. So onto the topic for today. What is hubris? Hubris is, according to the Wikipedia article on the subject, a term from ancient Greece which describes an individual who has extreme pride, overconfidence, and arrogance to the extent which offends the gods. Many myths that cover these topics show a mortal or minor deity who saw themselves better than the Theo and were justly punished for it. Many people see these myths as being the Theo being petty or jealous, and the debate over whether these stories ever truly happened is something that is still occasionally discussed in the community. But to a Hellenic polytheist, they're simply lessons on respect, and as much as it may be an odd way of phrasing it, knowing your place before the gods. So what happens to a person who commits hubris? As shown in the myth of Arachne and Aura, those who commit the hubristic act of seeing their abilities or appearance as better than the Theo, or who defy the whims of the gods, were punished severely. In the modern times, however, the gods are much more forgiving, as their teachings aren't as well known or commonly spread as they were during the times of the ancient Greeks. Having respect towards the Theo is extremely important, however. The gods do understand context and, importantly, intent. Simply joking that you have bigger balls than Zeus is in hubris, but claiming to be above his divine judgment with genuine distaste or scorn is hubris, and it would be punished. There are no texts that I could find detailing what would happen to a modern worshipper if they were to commit hubris, though there are stories of people in the community who have been punished for things they thought were hubris, and the only advice I can give in whether or not you've been smited is to go with your gut feeling. If you've got a persistent cold after talking bad about Apollo, then you may have been punished. But I would like to stress that not everything bad that happens to you is the result of hubris or a god being upset with you. If you're in doubt, it's best to ask the god themselves if they're upset with you. So, you've decided you've done something wrong and you'd want to apologize. How do you do it? Apologizing to a god or gods is actually a very simple thing. As I've talked about earlier, the intent behind an action is the most important part. If you don't feel sorry about what you've done, your apology won't be accepted. If you genuinely feel remorseful, then the gods will understand and most likely forgive you. It's also recommended that you come to a god you've wronged with an offering. This offering can be something simple like bread, water, wine, if you're able to get it. Please don't do this if you're underage. Honey or oil. If you're able to make the offering more personal, I would suggest doing that. There are many resources online which talk about sacred items, plants, animals, and gems, such as theo.com, as well as your own UPGs, which stands for Unverified Personal Gnosis, and Gnosis means knowledge. Be sure to explain why you're giving this offering and acknowledge that you've done wrong. The Theo aren't mind readers. They can't tell why you're giving them offerings unless you tell them. This also acts as a way to solidify your sincerity, as actually admitting what you did wrong and then apologizing is the best way to show the Theo that you mean it. Now that we've gone over the major discrepancies, it's also important that the topic of miasma is brought up. because it's one of the first things you may encounter when attempting to find out more about ancient practices. Miasma is a very common term in the Hellenic Polytheist community of Tumblr, and there is a misconception about what it really means. The community would have you believe that it's a form of pollution caused by being human, which is partially true. However, it's caused by doing actions such as murder, or leaving a person to die without aid, cannibalism, incest, both acted upon and planned or thought about, adultery, taking offerings from temples, and being near death in a sacred place. Clearly, if you have done any of these things, you should be more worried about the police than the gods. People who had miasma were banned from rituals or sacred spaces. It was believed that miasma would spread across their city, and so most were also banished from their homes. What the community is really talking about when they talk about this pollution is Lyma. Lyma is a spiritual dirt, so to speak. This is the dirt that is caused by doing mortal things like having sex, touching other people, going to the bathroom, eating, giving birth, or experiencing death. In modern times, this could also mean using public transportation, passing a morgue or a graveyard. You could walk past an area where a person had died, or walk past someone who had recently had sex, and boom! You've got Lyma. It's unavoidable. Cleaning yourself of Lyma is very easy. By washing your hands, brushing your teeth, washing your face, or all three can cleanse you of Lyma. You can also create kernips, which are made by extinguishing a flame in water to make it pure and then sprinkling the water on yourself. If you are going to follow this method, please be safe. Don't leave a match smoldering. Please make sure it's fully put out. Try to do this on top of stone or a dry surface that won't catch on fire. Cleansing returns us to our natural spiritual state so that we can approach the gods with respect. Lyma is not a bad thing. It's natural, it's normal, it's not wrong to have Lyma, it's nothing to be ashamed of. As a final note, I want to say people can choose whether or not to include miasma and Lyma in their practices. Many reconstructionists do, as it's part of the lifestyle. However, if you choose to go down the revivalist path, there isn't that much of a problem. It's your choice. I hope you enjoyed this video and that the information was helpful. Maybe you'll consider using ritual cleansing in your worship now. Remember, you don't have to if the idea is harmful to your mental health. The gods want you to be safe and healthy over quote-unquote doing it the right way. And I'm also sorry that this video isn't as long. There's not much information on it and it's a pretty simple topic. This was mainly to clear up misinformation that you may have come across, and I hope I got this as accurate as I could. There are sources below in the transcript that you can click on to read about the myths that I mentioned, and some other ones, as well as links to people in the community on Tumblr who have done amazing posts about Hubris, Miasma, and Lyma, and you can read up on those as well. Have a nice day.